Hello and welcome back to Mark's NOTCAST. It is Sunday, the 7th of December 2025. It's number 472, and today I am talking about the Stone Roses and obviously about the death of Manny, their bass player, a couple of weeks ago, and also the period immediately following John Squire's departure from the band and the dreaded solo years. And if there are any words more terrifying than here's one from our new album, it's probably I've gone solo. Which obviously only works if you're Han Solo, not in any other context. So for context, I guess first and foremost, obviously, it would have been easy and lazy to have done an episode the day after Manny's death and to have chased clickbait and engagement, but I'd rather let something sit with me and let the feelings happen, because I didn't know him. I never met him. Apparently a very nice person, very gregarious. People I knew who knew him have nothing but lovely things to say about him. And I mean, really all I knew was that he seemed a very nice man. The member of the Stone Roses most likely to write an autobiography, but also the one who I think was one of the most underrated bass players, because you look at the four people that were in the Roses: Rennie, Manny, Ian Brown and John Squire, all of them very, very good at what they did. Together, somehow those powers multiplied as opposed to added to each other. And of course, sometimes what you take out is as important as what you leave in. With Manny joining the group, really, I think, sealed the Roses as a band of excellent musicians. You could argue Ian wasn't a great singer. I wouldn't disagree with you about that, but he had something, and sometimes that's what you need. In the same way that Paul Di'Anno, not the best technical singer on the planet, he had something too. I think my favourite bass players: Eric Avery from Jane's Addiction, Cliff Burton from Metallica, Andy Rourke from the Smiths. Manny was one of those people that understood that the role of bass was groove, rhythm, the space between the spaces, the ability to play a melody that played with and duetted with the vocals and the guitar, not just repeating the rhythm guitar parts, but adding an extra thing to it. And if you think about it, if you sing in your head the Roses songs, what's the bit that you sing? It's the bass line, isn't it? I Want to Be Adored, She Bangs the Drums, Fool's Gold, Daybreak, Breaking into Heaven, Begging You. Those are the bits where, like, if you listen to them and go, those are great bass lines, absolutely great bass lines. And obviously they are evident in spades on all of the Roses recorded work, apart from their first single, So Young. And yes, I have a copy of So Young on 12-inch. The more observant of you will notice a sticker that tells you here that this is a 40th anniversary release to raise funds for Young Lives versus Cancer, a limited edition of 1,500 copies. And the best place to get a copy of this at the moment, by the way, is if you live anywhere in or near Manchester, is to go to the shop of the label Vinyl Revival in Manchester city centre, where if he has any copies in stock, he will sell you one for £21.99. That's where I got my copy of this from about 6 weeks ago. I was in Manchester about 6 weeks ago to see one of my favourite bands, Hope of the States, play a show on their 2025 tour. They don't play shows very often, and frankly, I'm smoking them while I got them. So, if you are in or near Manchester, or you know somebody who is, and you want a copy of So Young on vinyl, do check and see if they can pop into Vinyl Revival in Manchester and pick a copy up for £21.99. You can't get this by mail order. People on eBay selling it for more than it's worth. Scammers and bastards. In fact, when I was talking to the chap that runs the shop, he said sometimes I stick them on eBay just to piss off the scalpers. And I'm like, that's nice, isn't it? And he sees a copy that's turned up that people are auctioning. He will put a copy up just to blow the wind out of their sails. I like that kind of talk. Obviously, from So Young through to the last Stone Roses release, Beautiful Thing on 12-inch in 2016, which I don't have, but I have everything else in some form or another. And with the Roses, I'm talking about the period that pretty much starts on December 1995, and that would be the end of the Second Coming tour. Also recently available, and this is a bootleg, Roses Stoned and Dethroned. It is the full length show from the Second Coming tour, recorded live at the Leeds Town and Country Club on the 13th of December 1995. I've previously shown you the CD edition there that came out in 1996. This was recently pressed. Copies of the 2 coloured vinyl LP go for about £30 at the moment. This is the closest thing to a Roses live album you can easily get on vinyl. Professionally recorded, mixed and prepared for broadcast on BBC Radio 1 in March 1996. Subsequent broadcasts added a couple of extra songs into the set, so Good Times and Driving South, that weren't on the original 1996 radio broadcast, they're all on here. So this is the entire set performed that night with the exception of Tears. And also on side 4, you get alternative mixes of Tears and Breaking Into Heaven. It's not a lie to say that I have heard this I've heard this recording probably on average at least once a month for the past 30 years. So it's definitely worth the money I've put down for it. It'll end up turning out to be about 10 pence per play by the time I get to about 80 at the rate that it's going. This, if you think, oh God, I want a Roses live release and there aren't many about it there, this is an ideal choice to go for. Hang on, sneeze break. That's better, I just sneezed. Hopefully you just missed that. So, with that in mind, the last episode, which I did about a year ago, I brought us up to the end of the Stone Roses with John Squire, the end of the relationship. And it was interesting because the relationship clearly broke down. There was a lack of suitable communication between John and the rest of the band. And I think part of that would have been John's naturally reserved, not exactly chatty nature. If any of you have seen the interview that he did with Liam Gallagher on television in 2024, you'll know he is a man of few words, to say it politely. The band were in debt. John, having had his eyes expanded a little bit by working with new musicians, with Robbie Maddox and Nigel, found that I think he felt more confident about working outside of the Stone Roses, which is something he hadn't always felt. And the Roses were asking John to join them for demos in January, February 96. Ian Brown and Robbie apparently visited John's house, but he didn't answer the door. The band had taken deposits for 1996 summer gigs. Reading, I think, was about 250,000. Ben Cassim, Provincy Rock in Finland, I think, and a couple of others as well. So they played, I think, a total of 5 shows, or had a total of 5 shows lined up for late summer 1996. The idea being, having lost the momentum thanks to Silvertone and Zomba's abusive court tactics, is to try and keep the momentum going at this point. And John left the band. And suddenly the Roses were in a situation where, after having ended a tour and having very little money in their back pocket, they had offers of shows and they had no guitarist. And this brings us to probably the lowest point in the Stone Roses history, the 1996 shows. That it almost as if the future had been snapped away and replaced with something else. And the intention was always very, very clear at that point after John had left, that, as Robbie said to Aziz, is all we want to do in doing these gigs is show people the band the way people remember the band. There is no more. And there are 2.5 recordings from the 1996 shows. They got in a new guitarist, Aziz Ibrahim, who had previously played with Asia, I think, and the not the Stone Roses, Simply Red. Good God. So you think, looking at the Stone Roses lineup at Reading in 1996, and you kind of go, that guy used to be in OMD, that guy used to be in Simply Red, that guy used to be in the Rebel MC. It's not really the Stone Roses, is it? And it wasn't. There are, of the 2 recordings that exist, there is an audience recording, by the way, of half of the show in Finland, about 20 minutes. It's not very good. There is also a radio broadcast from the Benicàssim Festival in Spain, the first show on, I think, the 2nd of August 1996. And I've got to say, that's a phenomenal recording. Apart from the fact that every song has Spanish DJs talking over it in languages that I don't understand quite obtrusively, it sounds like actually a genuinely quite good band. Aziz had been trained on non-Western scales, and so therefore brought a different sonic palette to the group. Played the songs the same but different. Really, really interesting, actually. Not something I'd ever really heard before. But actually did a very good job of presenting the band in as close to the way people remember them as I think that he could have done. And, you know, acquitted himself excellently, and dare I say it, professionally. So the 5 shows, there was Benicàssim, Portugal, Denmark, Hungary, and Reading. Reading was the last one. And at some point in 1996, maybe late 1995, Manny was asked to join Primal Scream, and he thought quite seriously about that. And with Aziz in the group, the plan was we do the 5 shows, and that is it. And the broadcast of Benicàssim is well worth tracking down if you can find it. If it's on YouTube, I'm going to post a link down there. But the real coup, let's think. The coup, actually, is probably the word, was the Reading show in 1996. Apparently, Ian Brown stayed up all night the night before, took a lot of drugs, smoked a lot of weed, fucked his voice. And we have the truly horrific Reading Festival 1996 recording, which was broadcast on Japanese television. I uploaded circulating video files of that taken from a VHS tape. The only pro shot footage of that lineup, and one of the very few pro shot broadcasts of the Roses, broadcast on Japanese television. The Stone Roses at Reading, the very last show, and it features, apart from the first and the last song of the set, so apart from I Want to Be Adored and Driving South, the whole of the set featuring She Bangs the Drums, Waterfall, a new song called High Time that's never been performed since, 10-Story Love Song, Daybreak, Love Spreads, Made of Stone, I Am the Resurrection, a new track called Ice Cold Cube, and Breaking Into Heaven. And I've got to tell you, it's awful. It's really, really awful. And in fact, the awfulness of it doesn't come from Aziz at all. Absolutely not. Ian's voice is atrociously bad, and it's the worst I've ever heard it, and I've heard some bad recordings. He is out of time in I Am the Resurrection and sounds like a seal barking into a megaphone. It's awful. Awful. And somehow exists in Pro Shot mixing desk quality recording that was broadcast on television. There's also a moment in Reading where another person joins the band on stage. A woman dances to, I think, 10-Story Love Song and Daybreak in the background on a podium. What were you thinking? It was not good. Not good at all. In fact, there's one awful moment during Love Spreads where Manny kind of pulls a face and goes about Ian's vocal because it's so bad. And with that, the Roses were done, dusted, over. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And having seen the Roses in Wolverhampton in 1995, I was glad that I'd seen them. I was very glad that I hadn't been to Reading. I remember in the days of tape trading, I got the tape of the Reading show, and it arrived in the post just before I went out to work one February morning in 1997. And I remember being on the train going from Selly Oak to university and listening to the vocals and this is like 30 years ago. I remember looking out over the playing field that's to the left as the train goes into Birmingham and going, this is awful. And I cannot overestimate how bad it is. I cannot overstate how bad it is. It's one of those things, like when Derek Smalls, not Derek Smalls, but the actor that plays Derek Smalls, who's also a voice on The Simpsons, is describing Jerry Lee Lewis's The Day the Clown Cried, and he describes it as, it's a perfect object that no matter what your imagination tells you about it, the reality is so far beyond that. It's genuinely beyond your imagination. I mean, I thought it was going to be bad, but when I heard it, I was like, oh my, that is very bad indeed. So rule one, kids, if you are going to leave the band and you are singing, don't fuck your voice on weed all night long the night before. Don't stay up for 36 hours because it's going to sound terrible, and that will be most people's last memory of your band for at least 20 years. Oh dear. With that, the Roses split. Rennie went into another successful retirement, formed a band called The Rub. They played one tour in 2001 and promptly disappeared. John Squire formed another band. Ian went solo, and Manny joined Primal Scream. And in chronological order, and this will take no small amount of time because the boys got busy, some releases happened. So John announced his first band post Roses, the Seahorses, and the Seahorses released quite a good single called Love Is the Law. What we found, though, is without somebody to push back against him, the worst excesses of John's abilities were not tempered. Nobody was pulling him to one side and going, are you sure? Which means we have lyrics about Mustang Sally doing it in an alley on Love Is the Law. We have some pretty good, competent stadium rock here. Love Is the Law is easily the best track that the Seahorses ever did, and their debut LP, Do It Yourself, is okay. Geffen clearly went, that's the guy that's written most of the songs on The Second Coming, we'll have him. And there are some quite good songs on here. Blinded by the Sun is quite good. The Boy in the Picture is okay. Love Is the Law is quite good. Love Me and Leave Me is okay, but I don't remember the vast majority of songs on this album. I saw the Seahorses 3 times. I think I saw maybe their second gig, which was at the Wolverhampton Wolfram Hall. I stood next to Noel Gallagher in the toilets at that show. Didn't really talk to him. It didn't seem like the right time to do so. And then also I think I saw them at the Civic, and I saw them at the Town and Country Club in London, which is the only Seahorses show that was filmed either officially or unofficially that I know of, and a copy of that is on YouTube. So thanks to Traffy's Bickle, 1963. The second single from the album is Blinded by the Sun, and here is a radio edit promo CD. It's a much, much better song. In fact, Blinded by the Sun is the probably my favourite Seahorses song, apart from Love Is the Law. And again, it's backed with Kill Pussycat Kill and Moving On. Chris Helm, who sang in the Seahorses, has made a career out of playing songs from the Seahorses. Even to this day, I saw him in March, actually, in Skegness, of all places, performing those songs. And it was okay, but it wasn't fantastic. So, maybe that's one of the biggest gaps I've got between seeing bands, is between 1997 and 2025. The third single release from the album is Love Me and Leave Me, which I think was co-written ostensibly with Liam Gallagher of the Oasis, and backed with Shine and Falling Is Easy. I don't remember any of those songs. I don't remember any of the songs on this album, apart from Love Is the Law, Blinded by the Sun, Love Me and Leave Me, and the final Seahorses single, which is coming out shortly. Manny joined Primal Scream and got very, very busy. He played bass for Primal Scream, and he played on this album, Vanishing Point. Vanishing Point is excellent, and their bass player is funky as fuck. I saw what was regarded as one of their best gigs at the Wolverhampton Civic Hall. The drummer had left, so they had played a set with a drum machine, and they'd barely rehearsed with the drum machine. And that was a great gig. I remember being at the front and going, I liked Primal Scream. I was never a huge fan. I liked Screamadelica a lot. I thought that Give Out But Don't Give Up was a bit Rolling Stones, to say the least. But then when I heard this, and this was all the things that I wanted it to be, taking its name from the character Kowalski, who is in a 1971 road movie, Vanishing Point, about a man who drives and just won't stop to avoid the long, cold arm of the law, as Smokey and the Bandit might have it. It's a great song, and the bass is wonderful, dirty, filthy, Manny elevated the band to a level that they hadn't previously reached, or at least a level that they'd lost. And that was followed up with his role on this album, Vanishing Point. I love Vanishing Point. I love Exterminator. I think its Evil Heat is okay. And I think there's a couple of albums after that, but those 5 albums that he made with Primal Scream, the first 2 are astonishingly good. Possibly my favourite post Roses work by anybody. And tracks on that include Burning Wheel, Get Duffy, Kowalski Star, If They Move, Kill 'Em, Stuka, a cover of Motorhead actually, a track called Train Spotting, and a track called Love Long Life. The second single released from the album is Star, again taking a concept of revolutionary behaviour. Every man and woman is a star, and it's backed with Jesus, Rebel Dub, and How Does It Feel to Belong. Great track actually. I like Star, but it never worked live, I think. It was too sedate, too thinky, if that makes sense. Third single is Burning Wheel from the album. This, put technically, is a banger. Absolutely love it. There's an amazing Chemical Brothers remix on the CD single, and the B-sides include Hammond Connection and the original pre-thrash version of Higher Than the Sun. So again, it's a good single. I love Burning Wheel, really great. And in fact, Burning Wheel, let me just quickly check. After Burning Wheel, we got the release of a limited edition promo 12-inch of Stuka, remixed by Andrew Weatherall of the Meet the Two Lone Swordsmen. And that was, it's a good remix. Talking of which, Stukas, which I think are called JU87s, there are 2 of them in the world in a nearly complete condition. I think one is in Chicago, but the best one is in London. So if you're in London and you want to see a Stuka, that's the only place you can really go. There aren't many of them left. The Seahorses released their 4th and final single, You Can Talk to Me. And I think this is great. This really hinted at the band being more democratic, having a wider musical palette. For example, the 3rd track on it, which I think is called 3 Wide, and let me just quickly check. 3 Wide was a more... It's kind of like leaned into the use of loops and things. It sounds very much like a fantastic Roses B-side around the period of time that was Moses and Ride On. But the Seahorses didn't release another record. They recorded another album in 1998. I think they played some shows in 1998, and then everything fell apart. But after the release of that came Ian Brown and his first solo single, My Star. I can't say much about this because I'm just going to give you a list of things. Brown's solo stuff veers between very good and atrocious, depending on what time of day it is and what mood he's in and how bothered he is about production values. So the first album, with the tragically awful title of Unfinished Monkey Business, is actually, half of it is what the Roses album could have been. The 3rd Roses album, say for example, as is Ian and Robbie and Nigel worked together after Manny had left with the idea of doing some solo material. So there's songs like Nah Nah, What Happened to You, Can't See Me, which is apparently has Manny's bass on and Rennie's drums. And there's another couple of tracks. You kind of go, half of it is what potentially were songs that Ian was lining up for the next Roses album. And I just have to quickly look at the writing credits. So, for example, My Star is co-written by Aziz. Can't See Me co-written with Manny. Yeah, most of it is co-written with at least a couple of members of the Roses there. So you kind of go, if you want to know what the 3rd Stone Roses album post John would have sounded like, it would have sounded like a far better produced version of Unfinished Monkey Business. What Happened to Yar Part 1 and Part 2, for example, specifically, gives you a feel for the kind of Daybreak style, kind of grooving, rolling, kind of hip-hop meets indie kind of sound that became Ian Brown's trademark. I think half of this record is really good. Half of it, not so good. I'm sure you can guess which half I think is really good. Then there was more singles, because there's always more singles, isn't there? There's Corpses, which is a song about, actually inspired by vegetarianism around, you've got corpses in your mouth. and it's backed with a track called Lions, which features Denise Johnson on, who was an amazing vocalist who never got the recognition she deserved, taking its cue from the Lions. There are no lions in England. Corpses is another great song, and Can't See Me is more groove based, less melodic, more kind of like Something's Burning, but perhaps with parts of the melody stripped out of it. Is it good? Yeah, it's all right. It's fine. It's really good, but it's not amazing. So temper your expectations, because it's a quarter of a great band there. And it's got some really interesting things in. But had the Roses never existed, would you have said, let's get the bassist from Primal Scream, the guitar player from the Seahorses, and the vocalist from Ian Brown, and put them all together, and that'll be amazing? Nobody would have thought that. Primal Scream powered on. I saw them at the Birmingham Q Club of all days, Valentine's Day 1998, supported by Alabama 3, to support the release of If They Move Kill 'Em on single, and also the release of Echo Deck, a dub remix album from the period of Vanishing Point. Echo Deck, and we also got a limited 12-inch version of Echo Deck. I don't know where I've put it now. Actually, let's have a look. Yeah, here it is. A pre-release vinyl test pressing of Echo Deck, which was sold if you asked at certain record shops if they had a copy of it under the counter. It wasn't on the racks. And yeah, there's a copy of it. I don't know how much money it's worth. Probably nothing, come to think of it. But there we go. Oh, dear. So, what happened next? Well, Ian Brown got arrested for threatening an air hostess, went to prison, tours were cancelled, and picked himself back up from selling 300,000 copies of his debut album to release his second record in 1999. And the second record, by the way, is I think this is probably my favourite Brown solo album, Golden Greats, taking its name from Matt Ladd's 20 Golden Crates. Well, it's not strictly true. Golden Greats is a bit sarcastic, really, as a title. The first single is Love Like a Fountain, and I love Love Like a Fountain. It's a new, genuine artistic identity, kind of like a mixture of hip-hop rhythms and, kind of like more melodic than that. And I think it's really great. It's got some fantastic squelchy bass on it that doesn't come from Manny. He's built a new band around him, as he frequently plays in that. Let's just quickly see who else is on there, and it doesn't tell me. But yeah, so he's got he's built a new band, and it's a great band. It's completely different from the Roses. It's very different. You can see if you were to say, oh, he left because of musical differences, you could go, yeah, 100%. I see that. Love Like a Fountain, great single. Golden Greats has some very good moments in it. Getting High, Love Like a Fountain. Dolphins Were Monkeys, of course, and Babasonicos, on the grounds that it's got the best title. The second single, and here it is, Dolphins Were Monkeys, talking about the evolution of man, how we've grown from monkeys into people, and were it not for a slight thing, we could have turned into chimps, we could have turned into insects. You look at something like, I don't know, a weird and unusual squid, and you go, it's still 98% the same DNA as a human, for example, or 92%, and you kind of go, wow, that's going to freak you out. So don't think about that too much. Put Dolphins Were Monkeys on. If you don't know Ian Brown's solo stuff, the first two records, Unfinished Monkey Business and Golden Greats, are really very good indeed. And then there was a third single, which was Golden Gaze, and depending upon your formats, could have been backed with Thriller or Billie Jean, two covers of Michael Jackson. Didn't age so well, did it? Primal Scream came back in the year 2000 for the last record released on Creation Records, preceded by a single, Swastika Eyes, known in Germany, by the way, under the title War Pigs, in a special die-cut sleeve. Did they not learn anything from Blue Monday? Maybe not. And Swastika Eyes was, and still is, I think, one of my favourite Scream tracks, actually. It's got an amazing bass line. absolutely amazing. And you'll hear this frequently whilst Manny's in the band. Amazing bass line. The album that succeeded that was Exterminator, the last record released on Creation Records. Here is a promo of Exterminator with a different sleeve. It has a different running order. It adds a cover version of I'm 5 Years Ahead of My Time on it. The album itself, here available on Chunky CD, has a couple of my favourite Primal Scream tracks on. Kill All Hippies is good, but Exterminator is where it's at. And there is a Massive Attack remix on the Kill All Hippies single. And my God, that blows my fucking socks off. What an amazing remix that is. That's one of the best remixes I've ever heard. Alongside Shoot Speed Kill Light, which has guest vocals or guest guitar from Bernard Sumner, and My Bloody Valentine remix of If They Move Kill 'Em. Yeah, great album, Exterminator. And the second single was Kill All Hippies, which I've mentioned previously. Track 3 is Revenge of the Hammond Connection, the B-side that was on Star. That's quite good. You don't need to go crazy for it. And then we have Accelerator, backed with I'm 5 Years Ahead of My Time, that was taken off the album, and When the Kingdom Comes. I also bought, because if people still did these, a bootleg. Primal Scream, Kill No Fun Hippies, it says on there. And that is recorded at the House of Blues in Los Angeles on June the 9th, 2000, and features a set alongside 3 less commonly performed tracks, covers of Kick Out the Jams and No Fun, and Accelerator with Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols on guitar. I have no idea if it's any good. I really don't, actually, because it's been so long since I've listened to this, but I own it. Oops. Ian Brown did his 3rd album, called Music of the Spears, and that's quite good. Not as good as the others. It started off with Fear, You Will Know This, a song where every line is 4 words, and it's, for false expectations affect reality. Fine examples are ruin, fuck everything and run, etc., etc. All right, it's fine. Fear is great. It's a lovely groove-based track. It leans towards and kind of implicates the degree of spirituality that you also saw in Beastie Boys around about this time. But Music of the Spears itself is quite good. And I should point out, by the way, this copy is signed, which is quite unexpected, actually, when I bought it. But I saw it, and wow, actually, that's a thing. I hadn't realised I'd got that. So thanks, Ian, for giving me your love. It's got some good songs on it. It's got some not so great songs on it, but I like it. There is also another single, Whispers, thoroughly forgettable, truth be told, backed with a track called Superstar and a re-recording of My Star, and a remix LP, remixes of the Spears, which has an Uncle mix of Fear, that's a banger, and some other stuff, not so great. So there we go. Right, back into Primal Screamland now. 2002 saw the release of Evil Heat, the 3rd album that Manny plays bass on. This time with 2 singles, one of which was Miss Lucifer, and the other one, pardon me, was Autobahn 66, I believe, but it's not vastly memorable, truth be told. I was like, I'm not a huge fan at this point. Other stuff was going on in my life, it's fair to say. Japan got the release of the Live in Japan CD, which features the first official full-length live album any member of the Stone Roses released, by the way, in Live in Japan. This got a vinyl issue for Record Store Day a few years ago. I'm sure some of you own that. And it was also followed up with 2 best of compilations. This one, 2003, is called Dirty Hits, a second CD chock full of remixes of various tracks, some hard to get, some definitely not hard to get, and well worth picking up, as well as a re-recorded version of, I think, Some Velvet Morning with Kate Moss on vocal. Japan got a second live best of album, Shoot Speed, more Dirty Hits, and again, that's got nothing hugely exciting on, but it has got When the Kingdom Comes It's got Screamadelica on it, Revenge of the Hamilton Connection, Gentle Tuesday, Darklands, Imperial, Jesus. I mean, it's more B-sides than hits, but it's an interesting Curios album. John Squire, because everyone was wondering what he was doing next, came out with his first solo album, Time Changes Everything. And it makes the Seahorses look like Shaft. Time Changes Everything is okay. Just okay. But clearly, were it not John Squire, if it was just a bloke, somebody would be going, these are demos, right, John? You need a singer, right? You do? Do you know anyone who can sing less worse than you? Let's face it, John is not a great singer, and it shows all through this album. There's a couple of okay songs on it. Time Changes Everything is okay. I Miss You is okay. Everything else, not great. So much so that the first single, Joe Louis, here it is on CD, got to about number 72 in the charts. Not good. 2004 was a fairly quiet year until the end. John Squire released his second and to date final solo album, Marshall's House, inspired by the paintings of a painter called Marshall. And they're all songs that are built around the concept of his life. And I'm kind of going, what's the point of that? Why are you doing that? Are you doing that because you've not got anything to say? Or are you doing that because you've written songs but you don't have any lyrics? I think lyrics are really, really important. And you shouldn't just put stuff out because you can. You should put stuff out because you've got something to say. Otherwise, just sit at home and don't do it. Sometimes there is a, what is it? Brevity is the, the soul of wit. So B is the S of W, for example. But sometimes you don't need to say everything. It's really important what you don't say. 2004 also saw the Scream on the Road and their first live DVD that was released by the Scream, full stop actually, featuring Hoping for Palestine, a concert from the Brixton Academy, October 16th, 2004, 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. I saw this show with my friend Mark, Nick Cave. Last time I saw Nick Cave, actually. Also, Spiritualized played about an hour-long set. There are 7 songs on there, and there are 6 from Primal Scream, being Accelerator, Miss Lucifer, Rocks, Jailbird, Medication, and moving on up. I don't remember anything about this show now. It was 21 years ago. I know it happened. I was there. I remember standing up for an incredibly long time. I don't remember any more than that. And then 2004 also saw the release of, I think it's the 4th Ian Brown solo album, Solarized. This isn't the cover of Solarized. The actual cover of Solarized is, in my opinion, not particularly good. I decided, in fact, all of the inside art is better than the actual cover. That's the actual cover of the album. It's not very good. That's a better cover. That's a better cover. All right, maybe that one isn't. That's a better cover. Thankfully, thanks to the art of CD booklets, you can just roll them around and you can just go, well, actually, I'm going to call that the cover of the album. And I'm going to be a bit cheeky this time. We're going to make this the cover of the record. Solarized is fine, really good. It's got some really good moments in it. Nothing as good as the Stone Roses. By the way, I should point out that very little recorded by any member of the Roses as a solo artist, including Primal Scream, is as good as anything recorded by the Roses during their main lifespan. But that's not really the point. Solarized has some good songs on it. So Time Is My Everything is particularly good. Keep What You Got is great, and Keep What You Got, I think, has taken the music from an Noel Gallagher solo track called Tetahekan. That is on the soundtrack to X-Files Fight the Future. Keep What You Got was also the main single to be released from the album, and it was backed with, and let's quickly check, Love Bug, which Ian Brown did play live, and an instrumental with Solarized. So it's quite a good song. Quite why we've got a kid doing karate or some form of something on there, I don't know, but I don't have to understand this stuff. I just have to make sense of it afterwards. That said, Time Is My Everything is a lovely, lovely single. One of my favourite Ian Brown solo tracks, and it's backed with a re-recorded, finished and rearranged version of Where Angels Play, the lost Stone Roses song that the band never actually had a definitive studio recording of, from 1989, that the band played live all the way through to Glasgow Green, and then occasionally some other times. Also, I believe the picture on the back of the Time Is My Everything CD single is Ian headlining the Brixton Academy, which he'd played in the Roses, and obviously as a solo artist as well. There's a remix of Time Is My Everything on there. Don't remember it, don't care. And then this was followed up with the dreaded words, greatest hits. So Ian Brown released the greatest, taking its cue from that, obviously that statement from Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest, which features, amongst many other things, don't know why people put pictures of themselves on the front of records, especially when, and let's be honest, they're not the best looking guys in the world. I mean, obviously people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, but I don't put pictures of myself on my albums, and if I did make albums, I probably wouldn't put pictures of myself on them. So there you go. Greatest is exactly that. It's just a compilation of singles in order, mostly singles versions, including the Uncle collaboration Be There, which came out around about the time of the first album, a remix and re-recorded version of Forever and a Day, and a rearranged version of Love Bug, alongside 2 new tracks, All Ablaze and Return of the Fisherman. This version features a second CD of B-sides and remixes. Don't know why I bought it, but I own it, so there you go. Primal Scream kept on trucking, and this time released, I think, the 4th album featuring Manny, the unamazing Riot City Blues, which was a step backwards for me. It reminds me an awful lot of the Screamadelica era. By the way, this is meant to be the cover of Riot City Blues, but I don't like it. Reminded me very much of when the band went back to their pretty standard rock stuff that they were doing. So, you know, the same kind of sense of disappointment of Give Out, Don't Give Up, where they just went very bloody trad, to be honest. And I don't like that. Very traditional. Any band can sound like the Rolling Stones, but when you can sound like Primal Scream, why the hell would you want to sound like the Rolling Stones? I have little memory of this. I didn't see the band on this. I thought that doing songs with names like Suicide Sally and Johnny Guitar and Little Death and Dolls, brackets Sweet Rock and Roll, are like not vastly imaginative. There was a single, Country Girl, that was quite good, and it's backed with Stone You to the Bone, Give Me Some Truth, and To Live Is to Fly, but again, thoroughly, utterly okay, nothing more than that. And a live DVD, which I haven't seen for about 20 years, even though it's only been out for about 19 years. I never feel the need to go back and watch this, because this period of the band, although it was recorded in high definition in front of a sellout crowd in London, it didn't really, it was a boring period of the band. And they're like, well, we've run out of ideas, we can't do anything new or innovative, let's just do some songs. And when you stop climbing new mountains to see what's on the other side of them, you end up starting to deliberately and willfully limit your interests. Ian Brown released his, was it fifth solo album now, The World Is Yours. I quite like this. I saw him live at Folkestone on this tour, a show that is notorious for being interrupted by a massive fight. And he had members from a Stone Roses covers band that joined him to play in his live band. So he was playing I Want to Be Adored, Waterfall, Fool's Gold, etc. Which was, well, that was something, I guess. But also felt a little bit like when Morrissey started bringing back Smith songs. Is like, are you trading on past glories because the future doesn't look so amazing? That might be the way you look at it. Now, The World Is Yours has some good songs on it. Sinead O'Connor sings vocals on the track Illegal Attacks, which, of course, she has spoke about her in the current tense. She had such an amazing voice. Was never truly appreciated until it wasn't there anymore. And the final single from the album, of which there was only two, was Sister Rose. Primal Scream released yet another studio album. This time only 2 years later, Beautiful Future. I think this was the last one that they recorded with Manny on bass, and I don't remember much about it. There was also another live release, so I'm pretty sure we can tell which member of the Roses has been blocking live albums. This is Black to Come, which is Primal Scream and MC5, or whatever's left of MC5, considering some of them are now dead. And it has 11 live songs from Primal Scream. It has, I think, 13 live songs from MC5, and then it has 5 songs by MC5 and Primal Scream together, sharing a stage, including I Can Only Give You Everything, Moving On Up, Skull X, Ramalama, Fa Fa Fa, Rocket Reducer number 62, and Black to Come there. I should probably watch that more often, but I was tuned out from Primal Scream because they were doing very traditional, very basic rock at that point. They'd gone backwards, and I'm not someone who likes to go backwards. 2009 saw Ian Brown release My Way, which has some good songs on it. Stellify is particularly good. Just Like You is okay. In the year 2525, a cover version of a song covered by both the Fields of the Nephilim and other people was quite good. But again, it was the law of diminishing returns, and the only single was Just Like You, back to the Prodigy remix. And then the Stone Roses reformed. Manny's mother died. John and Ian went to the funeral, and lines of communication were open again for the first time in a long time. And the Stone Roses made a decision to come back, and they returned. And nobody with half a brain should begrudge them a payday. They got ripped off left, right and centre when they were together. They were mistreated by their label, is my opinion. Zomba ripped them off, and other people ripped them off, and their manager Gareth was, on the basis of everything I've heard, mind-bendingly incompetent and unprofessional in his approach. And this was an opportunity for the Roses to reclaim the glory and the experience that they should have always had, that moment in the sun that lots of people wanted them to have, but for some reason they just didn't have at the time. The reunion was a victory lap. The band tried to record new material. In 2016, they released the single, All for One. And All for One, depending on how you say it, could be pronounced Awful One. And that is true. This is awful. This is the worst Stone Roses song I have ever heard. It feels like a cross between the theme from Dogtalion and the Musker Hounds and the Seahorses B-sides. You can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to create magic. They went into the studio with the hope that they'd be able to generate magic again, but it failed. And apparently, when somebody asked Ian Brown on Twitter and said, how come, why didn't you do a third album? His response was, do you really think I wanted it to be that way? I think the intention was, and the hope was, that the Roses could release a third album and it would be amazing. And it didn't happen. There was a second single, a 12-inch Beautiful Thing. I don't have it. A numbered limited edition that sold out very, very quickly from the band's website and is astonishingly expensive to own now. But there is undoubtedly on Ian Brown's current last solo album, Ripples, that I think was released in 2019. There are some songs on here that clearly had been written with the aim of being part of the Roses over. Specifically, I think First World Problems was one of them, and Ripples itself possibly. But the production on Ripples is not great. I think it's a family affair, and no disrespect to family affairs, is that the production values, the writing values, it's self-contained and it's not as good as it could have been. And in order to create great stuff, I think Ian Brown needs somebody that will push back against him and push him to try harder. John Squire, meanwhile, released to date his last solo album, Liam Gallagher and John Squire. Liam effectively going, I know you've written songs, John, put them out. I will sing them. And but Liam had no writing involvement in these songs, and it shows, because this is like basically a John Squire solo album that Liam sings on, and the lyrics are dreadful. And you know me, I'm a big lyrics guy. Instead, the Stone Roses did their victory lap. They played Manchester Heaton Park and sold out 3 nights to 240,000 people. They played their first London show in 17 years at the Village Underground as a industry-only, invite-only show for a fucking trainer company. Thanks very much, guys. Thank you. That was in no way motivated by money. They did play Finsbury Park in 2013. I have the shirt, been there, done that. And that was great. It was a great way to see them. And with Rennie in the band at that point, the shows were absolutely magnificent. Musically, they could still deliver on stage. They couldn't deliver on record, but they could deliver on stage. And I remember having an amazing time watching them. But, and there's always a but, the downside was the crowd. These are people that had forgotten how to go out. These are people that had stopped going to gigs years before, that basically weren't very good at being out. They'd be absolutely all rammed down the front, and you'd have accidentally touched their wife. There were definitely a couple of fights where you touched my bird. A couple of them. People drank all day long, lost control, couldn't look after themselves. It was an aggressive, violent crowd full of meatheads and idiots that couldn't see Oasis anymore, that had forgotten that everybody around them is not a non-playable character, but an actual human being. And there was somebody that let off some kind of fart bomb or something in the middle of the crowd, and it stank, and there were flares everywhere. And it was like being at a football match, but a football match where it could erupt into a mass riot at any moment. And it really spoiled the experience for me, because I wasn't safe and the people I was with didn't feel safe either. I wanted to have this lovely, euphoric celebration of music. And in the end, I spent most of the gig with one eye looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was going to smack somebody right next to me. And I know that happened a couple of times because I saw it. It was not safe. Show was done by 10, but they closed the nearest tube. So you had to walk, and they had no directions. And in the end, we walked for 2 hours to get to St. Pancras Station to get the last train, which we made by 4 minutes at 13 minutes past midnight. It is atrociously designed, an atrocious experience, and very, very poorly organised. So much so, it's changed my opinion about, do I go to shows at Finsbury Park ever again? And if so, how do I leave? I'm not going to tell you how I leave, because that would be giving the game away. But if you ever are at a gig at Finsbury Park, or you're planning on going and you want a quick way out, let me know, I'll tell you. I love the show. It was brilliant. And I really wish that there was a live album and a live DVD to allow people that weren't able to be there to experience the evening. The closest we have is Shane Meadows' documentary, Made of Stoke, which is half history of the band, half fly on the wall during the reunion. And like a number of documentaries and a number of... It aspires to telling a great story, but it doesn't do it. Firstly, Shane Meadows inserts himself into the narrative as the filmmaker that loved the band. I get it, Shane. We all love the band, but you are not the story. The band is the story. The second thing around this is that it shies away from some of the really difficult things. So, for example, why did the band split in 1995? What did Rennie do for those 17 years? Why, when Rennie stormed off stage at Amsterdam and Ian Brown came back on stage and said he was a cunt, what happened next? Because that bit's never shown. It's just a cut to black, and then all of a sudden you've got the band playing Fool's Gold later on. Presumably someone somewhere sat down with Rennie and went, you don't do this, you're going to lose millions of pounds. And the band's profits are publicly filed and available. They got very rich off these shows. They do not need to work again. Sometimes maybe what it's trying to do is it's trying to tell a story that doesn't really exist. And the story that exists is one that they don't want to tell. The story that's really interesting is about how 4 people were once really good friends, stopped being friends, and then became colleagues, and how the nature of that relationship changes over time, and how that has worked to help them create a mythology and to help them make lots of money by being in a business. You choose people in bands not by, well, how good are they? It's just like, well, do you get on with them? Do you like them? Are they friends? Because remember, when you start off in a band, you got no money. So money's not a reason to hang around with these people. The joy and the music, that's the reason to hang around. That's not what this story tells. And also tantalising and frustrating is that you get a couple of songs in rehearsals, you get one song live from Warrington Park Hall, you get another song live from Heaton Park. And the Heaton Park footage is some of the best live footage I've ever seen. I want to see the whole show of that. I don't want to see 13 minutes of Fool's Gold. I want to see 100 minutes of that show. I know it exists. But somewhere, somebody sat down and went, no, we're not putting that out. But when you see how good the band are playing on that DVD, you kind of go, I can't understand why they wouldn't want everybody to see this, because people that hadn't seen the band would finally go, I get it, I see it, I know why. And all you get is 13 minutes of Fool's Gold. The tour was clearly a victory lap. The tour was clearly a way of reclaiming the band's legacy from the atrocious show at Reading in 1989. It was also clearly a way of the band kind of hoping to try and rebuild and to see if it could work again, and it didn't. But that's not necessarily the story. The story was, and obviously it wasn't shown for this because this documentary was shown in 2013, was the band stopped. They did a certain number of shows, made a certain amount of money, and stopped. And then 2016 then has 4 stadium shows in Manchester and some other shows in America and other places, doing big prestige shows at places like Sydney Opera House, Madison Square Gardens, closing it off with 3 or 4 shows in 2 in Tokyo, I think at the Budokan, and 2 at Leeds Direct Arena, and a final one at Glasgow Green, and maybe 2 shows at Wembley Stadium. As Ian Brown said, don't be sad that it's over, be happy that it happened. And that's the way it is. It would be wonderful if we were able to have a live document to be able to capture in stone forever the glory of the Stone Roses on that tour, but we don't. And instead, we have these, and we have YouTube playlists. And sometimes that's as good as you can get. It was frustrating to be a fan, especially considering how bad Awful 1 is, and how tangible, how close to goodness, greatness even, Beautiful Thing is. But it wasn't. It wasn't to be. And instead, and no one would begrudge this, the Stone Roses gave us one last set of lovely memories before they disappeared off into the sunset. And obviously, they never played again, and they probably never will, because the Stone Roses without Manny isn't the Stone Roses. He was the heartbeat of the band, the groove of the band. He, alongside obviously John, Rennie and Ian, was the thing that made the Stone Roses the difference between being a good band and a great band. Because together you'd have never put those 4 personalities together and made them into a band, but somehow those 4 personalities found each other in the midst of 80s Britain, found each other and created a greatness that was statistically improbable, almost as improbable as life itself. And that's where I'm going to wrap up. So, R.I.P. to Manny, rest in peace, man. You've definitely earned it. What a shame. But let's not be sad that it's over. Let's be happy that it happened. And with that, I'm going to roll off now. So, be excellent to each other. Stay beautiful, beautiful ones. And I will see you all some other time. Take care of yourselves and each other. And I'll see you in a bit. All right. Bye-bye.